So, good evening, everyone. My name is Maisha Essex. I am the communications director at Black Women for Wellness. If you are not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles, and we advocate for the health and well being of Black women and girls. All the work we do is through a reproductive justice lens, which, of course, includes racial justice, which is a primary theme of our guests' tonight's work. So please join us in welcoming New York Times bestselling author Austin Channing Brown. Welcome.
So glad to be here with you.
So tonight we are going to begin with a conversation with Austin about her latest title called Full of Myself, which recently dropped. And
Mhm.
then she's going to read us an excerpt from the book, and then
Perfect.
we'll open in the conversation up for Q&A at the end. But I would like to welcome everyone. If you do have questions as the conversation is moving along, please feel free to drop it in the chat. So my first question is, you are in full book tour mode.
Mhm.
Full of Myself has been out in the world for about 3 weeks now. How does it feel?
It feels like a lot of things. I feel like when authors are asked that question, the sort of expected answer is like excited. And I am that. But it's also just a really strange season for me. Um, I lost my dad earlier this year, who is my bestest friend. And so right now, every like beautiful thing rubs up against that pain, you know? And so how I'm doing and how I'm feeling is just really layered right now. I am proud of myself. I am proud of having done the tour. I am proud of myself for showing up the way that I did. But I am also, sad and heartbroken and doing my best. And uh, there's a whole section on full of myself and loving yourself when you're sad. And that's the season that I'm living in right now. I am learning again how to love myself when I'm sad.
Thank you for that vulnerability, which
Yeah,
you open up so much about in the book, because that really is the experience of a lot of Black women. Like, we're forced to show up. You are out promoting your second book, but also there's so much duality that's in our lives. And so
that's
we're
right.
experiencing those things at the same time. I
That's
give
right.
so much love to you during this season. I lost my
Oh,
mom
thank
about
you.
2 years ago, so I
Mm,
understand this space, and I'm sending you so much love in that space.
I so appreciate it. It felt really important to talk about in the book, but it also feels really important to continue to talk about it. For that exact reason, right? I don't want even the Black women who are here with us tonight to have this impression of me that she's got it all together and she's got all the answers and everything's great and we'll just follow her to the promised land, Like that is not the reality. I am trying and I am just sitting in the circle with my sisters with a very imperfect life and trying to be full of myself with everyone else and their imperfect lives too.
That's so relatable. It really is. So that's actually what my second question is about
Great.
the title, Full of Myself.
Yeah.
It's such a loaded title, but it is also so like, what's the word? I guess like eye grabbing and catchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about the process of
Sure.
finalizing that title, what it
Sure.
means to you, and what you hope your readers take away from it?
Yeah, as a writer, you know that oftentimes when you're working on a book, there's a working title. But that's just like how you have it saved, and it's the working title that a publisher will see, so it really only exists to give them an idea of what the book is in its totality, you know. Um, but in all sincerity, this book, for 3 seconds, it was called Wild, Holy, and Free,
I love that too.
right? For 3 seconds. But I was nervous, like trying to define all three of those things. What if the word like holy doesn't feel like accessible to some Black women anymore? Dealing with church hurt, which I talk a lot about in this book. So I ended up calling it Full of Myself because I really wanted to be cheeky, a little cheeky, right? A little sexy,
I
right?
love it.
A little
Yes.
bit. But I also wanted to turn that concept on its head because I realized that as a child, I was regularly told that I was arrogant or that I was full of myself.
Mm.
And often by the women in my life, actually. And I think that they had probably been told the same thing, right? And so I really wanted to turn that concept on its head and say, actually, instead of shying away from being full of ourselves, what if that's actually what we need? What if that's actually what's been missing all along? You know, now, of course, I don't mean that we should all be like arrogant assholes. Like, I don't mean that at all, right? Which is, um, but I do think that as we look at the systemic nature of politics right now, but also in years past, and as far as we can tell going forward, that the world often wants Black women to empty ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We are supposed to care about what the company cares about. We are supposed to care about what the news tells us to care about. We are supposed to sacrifice ourselves for others, for our coworkers, for, right? We are supposed to work until burnout. We are told to diminish our needs, right? Diminish our wants, to not show what we're curious about, to not show what we're really dealing with, right? All of those things are opportunities for others to empty us so they can fill us with their own desires, you know? And I want Black women to take back our internal life.
I think that is such a beautiful summary of just what the whole book is about.
Mhm.
And I loved how you touched on church hurt because I
Yeah.
think the way that you touched on that in the book, honestly, sis, I feel like it was done with so much grace and love because
Mhm.
if that's a topic I feel like so many Black women can relate to today, but
Um,
it's something we're but like all of us aren't bold enough to say like I've
yeah.
experienced this in the church because you think that it's a reflection of your relationship with God,
Right.
but a lot of times it's the space,
That's right.
the traditions, it's the
That's right.
institution, it's the
That's
people
right.
that you're working with. And I think the way that you touched on what your experiences were, it's like,
Yeah.
this is how this space made me feel. I'm not saying it was their intention to make me feel
That's
this
right.
way, but y'all
That's
made me
right.
feel small in this. Thank you for speaking up about that.
I think that religion is one of the key ways that women are attempted to be controlled,
Mm,
right? And I'll be real specific. We are often told that emptying ourselves is actually more godly, right? That the more we empty ourselves, the more space there is for God, right? The more self we give up, the more space there is for the divine. And I just want to suggest that if we believe that we are sacred beings, right, and that God lives within us, then isn't it just possible that being who God created us to be, right, not emptying of
mm.
ourselves, but holding on to ourselves is actually a sacred act?
Wow. Were you nervous to touch about that in the book? Because I was thinking that when I was reading, because I was like, her old coworkers are going to know
That's
that she's
right.
talking about this space. There's no way to not know.
Yeah, no, they know, child, they
Yeah.
know.
How freeing also.
Yeah, I honestly I cannot say that I was nervous. You know, my daddy used to say, everybody in your life is either a good example or a bad example, and they choose which one. And there's plenty of good examples in the book. You know, there's plenty of examples of partnership and of true showing up and true giving. And that church was not one of them. And so if you're a bad example, then we ever have a choice now, right? Like you could fix it or you could hide from it. And I don't know what they have decided to do. But it, like you said, it just feels important to name that as a part of our collective life that is real.
Amen to that. Because it's such our spirituality as Black women is such a big piece that
That's
fills us,
right.
right?
That's right.
I also loved in the book how you were so honest about your vulnerabilities and your
Mhm.
failures or what
Sure.
appear to be failures to the
Hmm.
world, but were such beautiful like learning lessons and stepping stones for you.
Yeah.
I think a piece that I related to a lot is I feel like you kind of always knew what your calling was like,
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be working in this space. It's a
Yeah.
DEI space, it's
Yeah.
racial justice work. I know
Yep.
I'm supposed to be here, but it looks different in different spaces. It's not always welcomed and accepted.
That's right.
I'm not really getting the love around it that I want, but you knew that you were
Hmm.
supposed to be there and you
Yeah.
really opened up about like, you know, talking to your husband and stuff late nights. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if this is what I'm
I
supposed
don't
to
know,
be doing.
child.
Um,
Yeah.
can you kind of share just a little bit about like the trajectory now, what that feels like of like those moments where you
Mhm.
questioned it and then
Right.
getting on the New York Times bestseller list and now working on like your second book on top of like what the current administration looks like today and all the things that we're seeing with folks who are working in DEI space. I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know, like the universe, like God put you here at such a divine time to share your work.
Yeah.
And so it's like all of that was in alignment, right?
Mm.
And so like this is your calling, like this is your
Yeah.
work, but I just want to know, how does that feel?
Yeah. Now today it feels amazing, but I also think it was important to in the book say that I almost gave this up.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, as in any memoir, there's all the stories that didn't make it, right? So the number of churches that I attended that I thought, oh, this is how this is going to manifest itself, right? I'm going to preach here, I'm going to write on the side, and I'm going to be a youth pastor. You know, like it's all going to come together. Everything that I love is it's going to come together, and every time it fell apart, I was like, am I not getting it? I literally said to my husband after this had happened, you know, 4 or 5 times in my life, am I just holding on to the dreams of a little girl? Is it time for me to grow up and get the 9 to 5, whether it has anything to do with what I like or not, and walk away from this? And because he is the pragmatic one in our marriage, I fully expected him to say, "Woo, I'm so glad you finally have come to this conclusion." You know, like I was really prepared for him to be gentle with me, but to say, "Yes, honey, it is. It's time." And for him instead to say, oh, no, 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 no. These fools are not about to stop you from what you have been called to do. You know, now it may not happen here, you know, it may not happen at the next job, right? He's like, I can't promise you that the next thing is when it's finally gonna fall into place, right? But I do believe for you that it will fall into place, but not if you stop,
And it fell
right?
into place.
And I'll tell you what else, as much as I hate to say it, every single thing that I went through was important.
And it's a story in the book now.
It's a story in the book now. But if I don't go through it, I have no story and I have no book, right? So everything that I went through, have no desire to do it again, right? But nothing that I went through was wasted either, right? It all became an important part of the story and an important way to be able to connect, right, with readers.
Ah, what a beautiful confirmation. I hope that encourages me on my personal journey, and I hope
Good.
that resonates with everyone else on the
Yeah.
call as well. Next, I want to chat a little bit about burnout because I feel like
Yes.
that's something that all Black women in America
Ooh.
can relate to.
Mhm.
What is your, I guess, your practice or your ritual
Yeah.
or your wellness routine? What does that look like when you are feeling burnout or you feel like the world
Mhm.
has depleted you? How do you feel yourself back up?
Man, that's a good question. This is actually not in this book. I think I'm going to write about this in my next one. Uh, but the single greatest thing that I have done for my own self-care is changing the way that I do this work. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna name two things, one of which is in the book and one of which is not. One of the ways in which I had to change the way I think about this work. Because often when Black women who are committed to justice work, committed to the uplift of our community, we have internalized the assumption that to care about the work means to give our all to it.
Mm,
And so if we are not tired, if we are not burned out, If we have a little teeny tiny bit of energy left, we're actually not doing it right. And I think part of that paradigm comes from so many of the people that the ancestors that we uplift in our work, many of them died for the cause or died early,
Mm.
right? And so it feels like an acceptable sacrifice. And I want to suggest that while our ancestors had to do it that way, that part of what they were fighting for is that we don't, right? And so I want to offer, right, the idea that we can live for justice work, but we do not need to plan to die for it.
Ashe.
And I think that's a significant paradigm shift. Live for justice, right? Live for what it gives to you. Live for the changes that you get to see. Live for the way that it makes your brain like spark, like live for it. But let's not die for it, right? Let's remember that we are more than our work,
Wow.
right? We are more than our work. We are whole, full human beings. And that means being worthy of rest and pleasure and delight and love and joy and every good thing in the world.
That reminds me, so at Black Women for Wellness, we have an annual reproductive justice conference.
Yes.
We had our 26th annual last month in August.
Okay.
The theme was minding our own Black business. And
Ooh.
so some people thought that that title meant like, we're resting, we don't care about what's happening in the world, we're
Right.
taking time off, y'all deal
Right.
with saving the democracy, right?
Right.
But what that title actually meant is we're minding our own Black business. So we're
Yes.
checking up on each other, we're showing up for each
Yes.
other, and we're pouring into each other in the ways that the world has neglected us.
Yep.
And I feel like that's in such alignment with what you're saying, because
Yes.
the ways that we show up for our work, because as Black women, we don't really have the privilege of not being a part of this work. This is a part of our existence, right?
That's right.
And some people wonder, like, oh, I don't feel like I'm not a protester. I'm not going to be out marching.
Right.
There's so
Right.
many other ways that you can show up. It's
Yes.
cooking, babysitting,
Yes.
document, write, film. There's so many other ways. And what you're saying, I feel like
Uh-huh.
highlighting that
Uh-huh.
we have the privilege now for what our ancestors have done, that we don't have to necessarily die for this work, but
That's
there's
right.
ways for you to show up and use your individual gifts to bring to the movement. So
Exactly.
thank you for highlighting that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's really important. I think we will continue to kill ourselves and
Mm,
or make ourselves sick if we don't change the way that we approach our work and begin to think of ourselves as more than mules, right? That a mule is typically bred for work, and that's what they do. They live and die by the work. But we are human, and the
so
work is important,
yes.
but I'm gonna need for y'all to also have some joy and some pleasure and some delight and some laughter and some, okay, like I need you to have the full human experience before you check out of here.
So how, I guess, what advice would you give to someone who's still
Yeah.
figuring out their lane, like the way that they're
Yes.
supposed to
Yes.
show up
Yep.
as a person in this
Yep.
work? Yeah.
I think this is a really, really important question because I will say that even as a writer who writes about racial justice, who writes for the benefit of Black women, right, that I struggle with being a writer because I'm not an organizer,
Mm,
right? And for whatever reason in my head, the top hierarchy of jobs for justice, right, is to be an organizer, right? So in my mind, Tarana Burke, she out there doing the work. Okay. I am sitting on the other side of my computer doing like this. And the two do not feel equal to me. They don't. They don't feel equal to me. But I'm really grateful to have the model of James Baldwin,
wow.
who also said, I am a writer, I am not an activist. right? Now, I don't know that he was creating a hierarchy like I do, right? But he was trying to add clarity that he is clear about what his role is in the movement. He is a writer. And Lord knows, I want James Baldwin to be writing. Now, perhaps he would have been a fantastic organizer, but we already had people doing that, right? I needed James Baldwin to be over here writing, you know? I needed Maya Angelou to be putting these poems on paper,
Yeah.
right? I needed Toni Morrison. I needed her to be writing some novels. I needed Nina Simone to sing me to sleep. Y'all hear what I'm saying? And so I think it's easy for all of us to be really dismissive of the work that we bring to the table because
Wow.
there's often something else out there that we're like, man, but they're really doing the work.
Where does that come from?
Child, I have no idea.
Is
Except,
that
like I
not us
said, like I
not being
think
full of
often
ourselves?
our paradigms for
Mhm.
it, right, are that it's MLK, right? What MLK did, that's the real work. What Malcolm X did, that's the real work, right? And we don't often give space to the millions of things that had to happen in the civil rights movement, to the millions of things that have had to happen since the civil rights movement. We needed some attorneys. We needed some doctors. We sure enough needed some teachers. We, right? But these are not things that we're like, yep, that's me. That's how I'm getting to the work. We feel like the work is what we do after we get home. But many of you are doing the work as your daily job. You already are a social worker. You already are a teacher. You already are an educator. You already are a
Photographer.
parent,
Mhm.
right? And so I think one of the things that we have to do is honor the work that we've already said yes to. I think the second thing that we have to do is be honest that we have not been called to every other thing. Because, child, listen, as much as I like dream of being an organizer, if I was, I would have us marching down the wrong street. Okay. We would be going north when we're supposed to be going south. All right. It would be on the wrong day. I would have printed the wrong day on all the flyers. Okay. I have no business, none, trying to organize anything. Now, you want a nice little speech at the protest? I got you. Right? Like that I could probably do, right? But we don't actually all have the same skill set and the same temperament and the same ability, the same talent, the same time constraints to do everything. And so we have to rely on one another. We have to see, well, my girl over there is doing what Tarana is doing is work that she should be doing, right? What Nicole Hannah Jones is doing as a journalist is what she should be doing, right? That everywhere we look, when you get clear about the work that you have been called to, then you can become more full of yourself, right? And even when that voice starts talking, right? So when that voice starts talking to me, I'll be like, Austin, you should not organize anything. Get back to writing. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
When you are clear about the work that you are called to do, that's when you are full of yourself. You're talking in sound bites. I love it. That's
I believe that. I believe
that's so
that.
beautiful.
And then you can honor it,
Yeah.
right? Then you can honor it. And you can still leave space, right? You can still leave space for the things that you support, right? I'm not going to plan the protest, but I'll show up at it,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to be on the flotilla for Palestine. That's not work that I've been called to, but I can raise awareness about it. I can donate to it, right? So it isn't that I can't participate in other things that I haven't been called to, right? It's just that I can right size what my role is in it and uplift the people who are in the role they are supposed to be in.
Thank you. Oh, that's so powerful. I want to take some time too to give some Black women in your life, because we're Black Women for Wellness, that's our
Yes.
organization, some Black women in your life, their flowers.
Mm,
I loved the part in the book. I think it was like your new boss when you became a resident director, and you said that this Black woman pulled me from the edge. And if
yeah.
that's not the most relatable thing of us having Black women who have pulled us from the edge, stopped us from cussing somebody out, stopped us from ruining our relationships, helped us like
Different.
that's just universal. And I love the
Yeah.
sisterhoodness of that. So
Yeah.
I want to just talk about what sisterhood has meant for you in your journey,
Yes.
and give some time for you to shout out some women who have helped you along the way.
Girl, Black women have saved my life over and over and over and over again. Okay. The woman that you name in the book, her name was Chi Chi. And after I finished a really terrible job that really did try to empty me of myself, she was my very next interview. And when I tell you it took everything in me not to be the most unprofessional person ever and just crawl in that woman's lap and start crying, I was like, Austin, you must remain poised. No, you cannot go sit next to her and hold her hand. Like that is not acceptable, right? But she was so safe compared to what I had experienced, you know? And and she walked me through that interview because I was so traumatized that I was not showing up as my best. I was so hurt. I was so scared. I had been taught to speak of myself in the negative, right? And so every answer I was given, she was like, let's rephrase that, right? Let's reframe that, right? But I should have failed that interview, right? Because I was not in a healthy place. And she put me back together again. The first Black woman who gave me a peek behind her life as a full-time writer and speaker. Major ahas for me. Major ahas for me. My cousin is in the chat right now. Okay. My cousin had to pick me up off the floor many times while I was grieving my father, right? Black women have saved my life over and over and over and over again. And the reason that I write about it in the book is because I don't want us to neglect what we take for granted,
Mm,
right? And especially again in this political moment. Now, I didn't know that this is where we would be when I was writing this book,
yeah.
right? I didn't know that. But I knew that whatever was coming would require that we need each other. And if there's one concern that I have right now, it is that we will internalize the violence that's being used against us and shoot it back at one another. That is my fear for us right now. That because we are so anxious and so scared, because we are losing our jobs en masse, because we are being attacked on every side, because we are fighting so many battles all at once, that all the violence that is coming our way, that we will internalize it and send it back out to one another. And I want to encourage us to remember that we save ourselves, right? That we can be safe with one another, that we can hear one another, that we have a shared spirit, a shared vision, a shared people, you know, and that nobody will ever see us the way we are able to see one another. And I think that's an equally important part of justice work and of building the lives that we want. I don't think we get there by ourselves. I think we get there with our sisters.
Wow. My last question for you this evening is about navigating the publishing world.
Yeah.
Can
Ask
also
all the
be,
questions, girl. We should do a whole nother thing on that.
which is also a very wide space.
Yep.
And with you being so bold in your subject matter in your book, and also your book
Yeah.
coming out um, in today's climate, just to be frank, um, there was a lot of reasons why folks could have said no.
Yeah.
And you chose to still be honest and bold in your subject matter without shrinking yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I want to know, I don't know, just advice for women in this, other Black women in the industry, but also like,
Mhm.
where does that come from?
Oh boy. Uh, you know, I think sometimes Black women, we have an expectation of ourselves to be the biggest, baddest, boldest, women like we wake up and like we're reading the affirmation on our mirror, that we wrote, and we're like, today's the day that I am going to, right, be this like this person. And I think there's value in that. I just don't think it often worked for me. Right? I would come home at the end of the day and be like, dang, I still laughed at that stupid joke. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do the thing that I said that I would do, and now I'm disappointed in myself, and now I feel shame, and right. And I have discovered that in my own life, what is a driver of change for me is actually being fed up.
Okay.
Right? That being fed up and being exhausted and being a little bit angry is actually far more indicative of what I'm going to do next than this internal, like I'm going to change myself,
It fuels
right?
you.
It fuels me, right? And so when I went into publishing, I had already heard a number of stories of women of color who got the book deal only to find that their editor sent them an email saying, hey, why don't you write like X, Y, or Z white woman over here? And the only way that I knew to try to avoid that was to send in a book proposal that had every shocking thing that I wanted to say.
Okay.
I did not hold anything back. My first proposal said, I want to talk about a trip that I took to a plantation where at the end of it, a Black woman stood on the bus and said, I think all white people are evil. I'm going to write that story.
Okay.
If you don't want that story, tell me now. Right? So there's no surprises, right? Here is the book I want to write. Do you want to publish that book? Right? Now, I'll tell you the truth. The first time I submitted that book, no, she did not want it. She said that nobody would buy it because nobody, that she didn't say nobody cares. But at the end of the day, she was like, nobody's going to buy it. I resubmitted it about 5 years later. 10 publishers wanted it. Now, that sounds really exciting, except that I still had to go through all the editors' meetings to listen for who really wanted my book and who didn't. Because I included all the shocking stuff, shocking to white people, not shocking to us, right? I was on calls where people said, hey, we really want your book. We're so excited about it. We do have a few suggestions though. How would you feel about taking out the word white supremacy? How would you feel if we put a glossary in the back to help like define terms for readers who don't understand? How would you feel if we challenged you on some of the stories because we want to just make sure that you get the widest readership possible, right? All of those things were indicators to me that you can't have my book
Okay.
because you don't actually want the book that I'm proposing. You just want my face on your website. And that's a fight I don't need. So I had to work really hard to find all the green flags and dismiss all the red ones. And that was actually hugely helpful then in being confident to publish it because I wasn't fighting my publisher, right? When the publisher is like, hell yeah, as opposed to, oh no, that is a boost of confidence in and of itself. Because now you have a team, now you have an editor, now you have a publicist, right? Now you have a whole team wrapped around this book who believe in it the way you do. And that is a very different position to be in than feeling isolated. And like, not only do you have to fight the politics at large, you actually have to fight your publisher to get the book
Mhm.
published.
Well, I thank you, Austin, for doing the work that you're doing because even you publishing a book like this and even your previous book, I'm still here. You're breaking barriers and laying a pathway for the Black female
I
authors that
hope
are coming
so.
behind you. So I thank you and I salute you.
I really hope so because we need more. We don't have enough yet. We don't have enough yet. So if you're out there wondering whether or not your story matters, let me tell you, it does. It
It-
does. We need it. We don't have enough of them. We don't have enough of them yet. I'll let you know when we got enough of them.
So now I'd like to switch gears and
Mhm.
give Austin some time to
Mhm.
share some words from her book herself. You can choose whichever expert you like to share. We are all ears. And then, chat, I will let you know that after this, we will open the chat for questions. So please drop your questions in the chat and we'll move to that directly
Awesome.
after.
This is from page 66. It's from I Love Myself When I Am Connected. I am personally exhausted from moving to a new state, starting a new job, and trying to keep up with the recent wave of videos of unarmed Black men being shot by police. I'm not the only one. Many of us are tired. We have been trying to convince the country to pay attention. And now that they are, we still feel the need to be vigilant to make sure racism doesn't get the last word on the reporting of Ferguson. But life doesn't stop. I don't get to skip work meetings, so I find myself skipping meals. I don't get to skip trainings, so I find myself skipping social events. I don't get to travel down to Ferguson, so I find myself skipping sleep. Of course, my struggle was nothing compared to that of the people who laced up tennis shoes and spent hours marching in the streets demanding justice. My struggle was nothing compared to being met with tear gas and military tanks. My struggle was nothing compared to the people who worked all day and marched all night. And so often, this is also what it means to be a Black woman in America, working all day, working the day to put food on the table, and then protesting all night to make America do better. It means splitting ourselves in half. This is what it's like to save ourselves. One night, I sent a tweet trying to make sense of how I could be so tired without having set foot in Ferguson. I tweet about how I cannot fathom how tired the community must be. There is no way they are getting sleep as they work, meet, march, and do it again night after night. I tweet about how much this fight is taking out of all of us and how very tired I am. A Black woman tweets back, "You go to sleep, sis. I'll keep watch tonight." It is a simple but profound moment for me to be held by someone I have never met, but someone who knows exactly what I'm trying to say. Rather than engage me in an academic way, the way we often engage one another as we work out the cost of defying white supremacy in America, she responds to my need. And in that response, I understand. I understand what must be happening in Ferguson. This. One person sleeps and another person marches. One person watches the kid and another person eats. Excuse me, another person cooks. One person hosts the meeting and another person eats. One person posts bail and another person holds the family. We don't just march together, fight together, write together, meet together. We also look out for one another and our physical needs. We remember that none of this is riding on one of us, and therefore we each can set it down and then come back. Prioritizing one another's survival and a system that doesn't honor our humanity is also how we practice solidarity.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And so we'd like to open up the chat now. If you have a question, you can share it in the chat or you can raise your hand and I can put you on video. And shout out to your cousin who is in the house. Dion Anderson said, "You have been amazing. We love you."
Oh, I love you back, honey bun.
Laura also added a James Baldwin quote here. "Not many people have
Mm.
ever died of love, but multitudes have perished and are perishing every hour and in the oddest places for the lack of it."
Yeah, we need some better definitions of love in this country.
If you'd like to ask a question, you can raise your hand or drop it in the chat. If not, I have plenty of more questions I can ask. Okay, here we go. We have a question from Laura. Okay, you can speak, Laura. You can take yourself off mute.
Hi, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Oh, Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so very much for your time and for all the amazing work that you do for your writing. It's truly a gift. Um, I really love, the discussions about church hurt. I've,
Mhm.
done some reading about how like, you know, spaces where maleness and authority are not to be questioned is kind of how like predatory attitudes can start thriving. So you delving into that is incredible. From the wellness perspective, I guess my question for you is, so I work in healthcare,
Mhm.
and as I'm sure you're already more than aware, so much of study in healthcare is based off of like whiteness and maleness, and that's all the default. But that obviously puts healthcare at a huge deficit to
That's
the
right.
detriment of and people of color,
That's right.
considering not everyone's white and not everyone's male. So
Yep.
I just wondered, kind of if there are green flags versus red flags that you look for when you're
Mhm.
navigating healthcare, as a patient,
Mm.
that those of us on the healthcare provider side can
Yeah.
can use to help support,
I love this question. I would be so interested to hear like a bunch of responses to this. I think for me, first and foremost is representation in the office, right? If I walk in, am I going to be the only person who looks like me? You know, and honestly, it's meaningful to me even when I'm not directly interacting with another Black woman, like just to know that there are other Black women present, right? In the office, behind a chair, answering a phone, like it does not matter to me, but the presence of Black women matters so much and tells me something about the organization that I'm about to step into and whether or not they assume that someone like me will walk into the room. I also pay a lot of attention to signage. Um, I feel like for the first time in my lifetime, and this might not actually be true, but certainly the first time I've been conscious of it, I have seen my first eczema commercial that shows what eczema looks like on Black skin and not just white skin. And I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for the medical industry to show photos of what Black folks look like when we have an ailment or are healthy or anything, right? It was hard as a pregnant woman to find photos, like medical photos of Black women who are pregnant, right? And so even what are the references that doctors are using, that nurses are using, that healthcare providers are using on the walls, right? And then the last thing I would say is that we sorry, I want to try and say this quickly. When we talk about color blindness, right, previous to our current era, we used to all understand that being colorblind was not actually a goal, right? That not seeing the color of people should not be our goal, right? Treating people equitably, regardless of their color, should be the goal, right? But I think the second step up, right, is also to not disregard or to not practice color blindness when it comes to the data, right? So, so does the healthcare provider that I have know and understand the data on mortality rates for Black women giving labor? Right? Does my healthcare provider take surveys so that they can see whether or not Black women are getting the equal or same care as white women? Is right, like is the data being tracked? Does the company even care? Right? Does the company realize um, that Black people can have a completely different experience of a space and want to mitigate that? Right. So I think those are a couple ways that I would say as an educator and as someone who must often go to the doctor. But I bet there are lots of answers to that question, and I would be so interested to hear many, many women of color respond to it.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here tonight, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. And I also would like to invite you to check out our website at Black Women for Wellness and follow us online. All of the work we do is through reproductive justice lens, and we do a lot of the basis of our work is advocating for Black women in the healthcare space. Um, if you have a question, please raise your hand. We have a comment here from Dion. She says, I want to thank you for the reminder that being full of myself is needed to continue the work. I
Yeah.
too have a story and want to find the courage to tell it. Tell us where we can start to gain the courage needed to start. Love you.
Wow. For me, I started doing this in the age of blogging when blogging was like a big deal. And so I committed myself once a week to writing on my blog. And it might only be 500 words, it might be 1,000, it might be 1,200. If I really had something to say that week, it could be 3,000, you know? So I didn't put like any limits on it, but I committed myself to using my voice in that way. And I did that once a week for 4 years. It was at the end of that 4 years that editors and publishing houses actually contacted me. So I didn't even go looking. Um, Agents, like representatives, started emailing me and asking me, have I ever thought about writing a book? Um, I don't believe that that's like the only way to do it, but I do think you have to start telling your story, right? So, what are the ways in which you want to be telling your story? Is it through lectures? Is it through groups like this, right? Is it through like a small group situation? Is it through writing? Is it through video? Is right? And I think I think you have to begin, right? I think you have to begin because in so doing, you begin to figure out what does resonate with people, what people have more questions about, and you begin to find out what you enjoy talking about the most. And I think all of those things are important to know before your story like blows up. Like you wanna already be clear about those things. So start small, and begin, and you'll answer some of your own questions about vocation along the way.
Dion said, thank you. Sound like your dad just begun.
Don't make me cry.
Do we have any other questions? Shannon said, thank you, Austin. So proud of you.
Hmm.
If not, we can close. Thank you so much for your time. Laura said this was incredibly insightful and inspiring. Austin, can you tell us where we can get the book
Yeah,
as we leave and where we can
yeah.
follow you and learn more about the work that you're continuously doing?
Yeah, I'm at Austin Channing everywhere. So Instagram is where I post mostly these days. I do have a newsletter. I do have a Patreon group. So if you're interested in either of those, you can find links on my website or through Instagram through the link in bio. Um, and the book is available anywhere you feel like ordering it. You can request it at an independent bookstore. You could certainly get it from all the big ones, the Barnes and Noble, Target, if you're shopping there. Um, Amazon, of course, will have it. So yeah, wherever you are most comfortable purchasing books, you can find it there.
Thank you. We are sending you so much love, light, success, and abundance. Thank you for this gift that you've gifted all of us and keep shining.
Yeah. Before we go, I just also want to say thank you to you and to this group. Um, I uh when I was pregnant, the thing that I was most like adverse to um was reading anything related to being a Black woman who's about to give labor because I was so afraid of the stats. I was so afraid of the data. And I was already an anxious pregnant person. And so I could not handle any additional anxiety. And I'm so, so, so glad that organizations like this one exist to create awareness, to be a place of safety, to be able to walk with Black women who are also afraid or also dealing with anxiety. I hope that you feel full of yourself enough to honor the work that you are doing and the change that you are doing in this world. Because, like I said, we need each other, and if organizations like yours didn't exist, I know that my own pregnancy would have gone a whole lot differently. And so, thank you. Thank you for recognizing the importance of our wellness in an industry that often does not.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm expecting currently. I'm right at the end of my
Congratulations.
first trimester, so I haven't even announced it wide to the world yet. So folks on the call are like hearing it first, but I
Goodness,
think
so
that that's a
honored.
whole that's a whole nother conversation of just the weight of what it feels like welcoming motherhood. Me now welcoming motherhood with my mom as an ancestor,
Yeah.
and then even what the climate looks like today with so much happening, changes in healthcare.
Yeah.
And I will say that Black Women for Wellness, I feel so blessed that this is my employer because it's really creating this like, I don't know, like this bubble, this like
Yeah.
refuge for
A
me
little
of like
circle of
Black women.
care.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
so,
you
so
need a
grateful for
circle of
that.
care. And
And it's so important.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for being a part of that circle of care for others. And I hope that you feel it really strongly, especially after you officially announce that that circle of care just grows bigger and
Oh,
stronger.
thank you, Chad. I receive all of that. Thank you. I love Black women. I love us. I
Right?
love us. Well, I will be sharing this online. I'll post some clips of this conversation on Black Women for Wellness's social accounts and tag you.
Perfect.
Hope to continue to follow you. And anytime you're in Los Angeles, our offices are in Leimert Park. Please stop by.
I
We'd love
will.
to be with you.
That sounds great. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I appreciate your time.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Bye.